The shooting range. In this episode, pages of history, an interception attempt in the Mediterranean, arsenal, top Chinese CAS, and metal beasts, versatile SPG. The summer update is almost here, but before it finally arrives, we offer some fun medium-rank gameplay. How about this Soviet self-propelled gun based on a famous tank? Please welcome the Su-122-54. The engine and transmission of this SPG are almost a copy of its base. A 520 horsepower engine can propel the vehicle to 50 kilometers an hour. Since the mass is again almost the same as on the T-54, you can expect familiar dynamics. It's mobile enough to advance together with your allies, and sometimes you can even get to strategic positions earlier than your opponents. The only caveat is the reverse. With only 7.5 kilometers an hour, don't expect a chance to retreat for a reload after every shot. If your attack doesn't impose critical damage, you'll often have to bear with a counterattack. On the plus side, you can trust this SPG's armor. Its front is protected by 100mm thick rolled armor plates installed at pretty sharp angles. Unusually, the lower front plate has the sharpest incline. Inexperienced players who don't know about this feature might aim for the LFP, expecting a vulnerability, only to hit the thickest armor instead. The upper front plate and the side slopes provide decent protection against the most common AP and HE shells in this class. Only the strongest guns attacking at short range or with Heat FS shells can penetrate them. The SPG does have its vulnerabilities though, so weaker opponents can damage it just fine. Look at the commander's cupola and the loader's hatch protruding above the machine's roof. Always keep in mind what your target can do when you attack it, and get ready to be shot in those vulnerabilities. The SPG's own armament is a 122mm cannon. Its elevation angles vary between -4 and +16 degrees, while its traverse angle is 8 degrees to each side. The Su-122 offers a wide range of available ammo, but there's only one main shell, one pretty popular among Soviet vehicles. It's the BR-471D that can penetrate up to 230mm of armor up close. It's enough to damage almost any tank from the front. With nearly 200 grams of explosives and TNT equivalent, this shell can guarantee major damage if it goes through the armor. The Su-122-54 is an excellent self-propelled gun with reliable armor and a powerful gun. Its balanced traits help it perform well in various missions and stay equally efficient at long range and on the front lines. The spring of 1942 brought a small respite to the battlefields of North Africa. The sides spent so many resources that it rendered active combat impossible. None of the parties to this confrontation would be able to hold out for long if their opponent began an offensive. In light of these circumstances, it was paramount to let no reinforcements reach the enemy, for the fragile balance would be broken. It was like a staring contest. Who blinks first? On May 10th, an intercepted message plucked the bare nerves of the British headquarters. A convoy of large transport ships and a destroyer escort were heading from Taranto in Italy to Benghazi in Libya. Was there a way to validate this intel? And was there any time for that? Nope and no. A quick order sent 4 destroyers from Alexandria to intercept, and airfields began urgent flight preparations for their Beaufighters. Did anyone think that maybe it was exactly what the Germans had expected? In any case, the destroyers were spotted by aerial reconnaissance the next morning. From that time on, they were under constant surveillance of the German pilots. A few hours later, the sailors sighted a few Junkers, flying as if they were just there to state their presence. The ships realized that they were discovered and turned back, as per combat manuals. The operation was clearly a failure. What the British sailors didn't know was that it was just the beginning of their troubles. The Beaufighters had already taken off from an airbase in Egypt, but it was too late. 3 fighters couldn't stop 8 Junkers performing high-speed diving attacks. The first destroyer, HMS Lively, caught a bomb and promptly sank. Other ships had to slow down to take in the survivors. And while the Junkers flew back for a reload, Italian Z-1007 aircraft took over, dropping dozens of small bombs from a high altitude. The Beaufighters couldn't stay in the air for much longer. They were out of fuel. They had to return, even though they failed to down a single enemy aircraft. As soon as the Beaufighters turned back, the 3 destroyers heard engines roar above them again. A new, bigger wave of Junkers arrived, and there was no one left to defend them. It was no less than a miracle that high speed, constant maneuvers, and thick anti-air fire were enough to avoid new casualties. The bombers had to retreat empty-handed, but enemy recon aircraft were still soaring above. They took turns transmitting the location of the British ships, which meant that another attack was inevitable. A fresh wing of Beaufighters arrived, but they again failed to save the threatened fleet. The HMS Kipling suffered a fatal strike in the very first attack, getting bombed from stern to bow. 10 minutes later, a few explosions shook the HMS Jackal. The last remaining ship, the HMS Jervis, tried to tow it, but to no avail. The crew had to abandon it. On the morning of May 12th, the Jervis administered a coup de grace, and the Jackal blissfully sank. Other Royal Navy ships were on their way, but it was obvious that the battle was already lost. The German pilots suffered no losses. The convoy successfully made it from Toronto to the occupied Benghazi, and all the British command could do was draw on this bitter experience. However, the British pilots managed to recoup some of that shame by destroying 10 enemy aircraft the very next day. The Germans missed the counteroffensive, and the fragile balance was restored. We've already covered the arsenals of many high-rank fighters and attack aircraft, but we never talked about Chinese aviation before. Time to fix that. Today's highlight is the JH-7A, the Flying Leopard. Officially, this aircraft is a fighter bomber, but it can't really offer much in air battles compared to its counterparts. All its pilots can rely on are 4 hardpoints with close-range missiles. The wingtips can carry the PL-5C, Chinese guided air-to-air missiles with all-aspect homing devices. Their acceleration is so good that the enemies don't always have time to deploy flares. Neighboring hardpoints offer a few more options for armament. In addition to the PL-5C, you can also use the PL-8, copies of the Israeli Python missiles. They can't boast impressive dynamics, but instead offer a high G tolerance that can help them hit more maneuverable targets. You'll need air-to-air missiles in mixed battles too, so we suggest you use existing loadouts to build your CAS slots. First, let's take a look at the unguided weaponry. The Leopard's conventional bombs have inferior efficiency compared to American and Soviet munitions of similar calibers, so we'd like to recommend the 500-kilogram ones. This aircraft can carry up to 8 such bombs, but it might be wise to mix them with some rockets. Quality over quantity is again the guiding idea for picking your ordnance. We recommend you go for the large caliber Type 130. It offers efficiency similar to the Zuni or the S-13 and can damage lightly armored targets even with indirect hits. The most exciting part of the arsenal is precision munitions. Let's begin with a less expensive loadout, consisting of laser-guided ammo only. Replace the PL-8 missiles with a couple of 250-kilogram bombs, and then there's a choice to make. This aircraft can fill the remaining 4 hardpoints with 250-kilogram bombs, but there's also larger calibers available, 500 and 1,000 kilograms. We suggest you avoid the middle ground here. Unlike the other calibers, this bomb has no inertial guidance to help the laser, which means it requires higher accuracy. Now, the 1-ton bombs look very appealing. Sure, they weigh more, and the Leopard's already sluggish at times, but with this caliber, you can score multiple targets with a single drop, if you're lucky. The most expensive loadout includes the Soviet Ka-29T TV-guided air-to-surface missiles. They've already earned their fame thanks to their high velocity, impressive warheads, and decent range. And while the Flying Leopard gets to meet its ground siblings, it's time for us to answer some of the questions you left us in the comments. The first question was sent by a player called the Canadian Aviator. What's the best loadout for the F-111 Aardvark? Hi there, pilot. We'd say the best loadout is a set of 8 3,000-pound bombs. They're amazing against groups of vehicles. Lior Elisha asks, what's the tube on the right side of the Magach 3? Hey Lior, it's a 60mm smoke grenade launcher. Another question comes from Crazy. What's the best way to use the ME-262A1/U4? Going low to the ground like the HS-129? Or doing top-down attacks? Hi, Crazy. The best way depends on your target and its location. You can attack light tanks from the front just fine, but thicker enemies need to be attacked from their sides or from the top. Trey Bronson writes, can you do an arsenal on the premium Mirage F1C? Hello, Trey. We can't promise it in the next episode, but we'll certainly talk about the arsenals of the entire Mirage F1 family. Thanks for the idea. And the last comment for today was written by James Belcher. Which one of the lower-class jet planes in War Thunder is the best? Hi, James. If we take battle ratings into account, we'd say the best fighter is the P-59A, and the best CAS jet is the Strike Master. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget that petting leopards is a bad idea. Leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.